The way we use specifications and quality limits, it often is really confusing to your operators and your production staff. Let's just use a simple traffic light. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. In today's video, it's about how do you manage when people change something to your processes, your products, when you block, when you act on your specifications, on your quality level of the product. What do you do when things go wrong? Or actually, how wrong are things going? Now, what I see a bit too often is that we have specifications for product, but also for intermediate production somewhere within our total production process, where we say, well, we've got this sort of wrong, and then you've got very wrong, and then you've got blocking wrong, and some of it can be corrected, some of it doesn't really need to be corrected. Okay, but when do I do something? When do I block the product? This is an opportunity to make a very clear statement to your operators, to the whole production team, and make sure that you can also handle deviant cases, so defects, or that you make a clear message on when should you act, and maybe even more important, when don't you touch the machines. Now, for that, use a simple traffic light system, so a free level system. Yes, we can cheat a little bit on the red, but let's do the basic steps first before you want to make it too complicated. So basically what we say is we need to have limits on the product. And on the product, we say, okay, what is within specifications and what is not? So within specifications, it's a good product, right? And there are also things that are out of specifications, and we will block our product. And then there are those quality defects. They're not really a defect. So it's not good. It's also not bad. So you don't really have to block the product. You just have to tell the next line, so the next machine down the production process, they should adjust the settings a bit. It'll be good. Or even more insidious. Well, the product is good. It can be shipped to a customer, but we used a bit too much raw material because one of the settings is not completely correct. So we're sort of going over a triggering limit where you don't really have to do anything with the product, but something's wrong and you're going into the danger zone. But in the danger zone, that doesn't really sound like a product parameter, now does it? That is something where we check and we control our process. And here is also where you should get that stuff linked up. Now, in the example I gave, if you need to tell something to the next part of the line, to the next operation, to correct something you did here in the product, that is blocking, right? You may not put a big red label on it and use the formal blocking procedure, but we'll come back to that at the end of the video, okay? But what you are doing is you are disrupting the normal flow of your product through the process. You are asking for a correction. Even if you ask for an extra check, you are asking for someone to release the product and put it back into the normal quality stream. That is blocking in its broadest sense. So that goes into red. For the orange, we don't really care about the product. This is where we get to that process. So as long as we still say, everything's behaving fine, there's really nothing to worry about, the process is good, right? But when we have a process that is shifting, is doing some unexpected things, that is producing, those products that are a bit borderline-ish, that we don't really need to do anything with the product per se, but if we don't correct the process, probably something will become a defect later on. That is what we use our yellow, orange, amber, whatever you want to call it, light for: bad processes. I have to correct my own correction. Anyway, you need to correct the process. That is your warning level. But at that warning level, the product is still good. Now, generally, I hope this is true for your lines, when you produce products that you should block, you are generally also outside of the normal control limits for your process. But this is linked to process capability. If you have a process capability that's relatively low, around CPK of 1 or lower, you will from time to time have cases where you're producing serious defects, so not this 1 or 2 packages that your vision control or your check weigh or something throws out of the line, but a batch that has a problem. Usually you will also have a problem in your process, but if you have this low capability, sometimes you will still say, we don't have to correct the process. But in all honesty, if you have such processes, I would still look into it. And it might not always be good to change the line, but it is definitely always good to see if something special happened on the line. So it is the same level there. And that basically becomes the quality traffic light system. So when you give operators the green, that is when both the process and the product are behaving as you expect. They're both good. So that is a moment where you do not touch anything. Then the level up, the warning level, is basically saying, okay, the product can go down line. It can just be normally used by the next department, but you need to check and probably correct your process. Your process has gone out of control. And then the red light is, okay, stop the product as well. We will be correcting the process, but we also first need to do something with our product. Now, I promised you a bit of, when do we really block it, and is there a difference in the red light? And yes, there is. And after that, I will come back to the process and a bit of process control. So what you can feel already is, well, there are some quality limits where we say, we don't really need to block the product. We just need to correct it in a way that we know, right? But this is a change in the process. Or it can go onto the market in a B brand. This will not be the product for the A brand, but we have another category, and we just know what action to take. And there is a sort of a fixed action on this particular deviation. So we know how to handle the defect. It might not even really be counted as a defect, but just as a deviation of your product standards. Those are still things you do to your product. So they are red. You are blocking your product until you are changing it. But I can imagine that if you work with this in a good way, you don't want to overload your official product blocking procedure with these types of, let's say, standardized sort of quick release procedures. So this can be split up. Into sort of light red and dark red, where for light red, for specific conditions, so specific quality parameters that you measure up until a certain value, you have standardized ways of correcting the problem or of reworking the product, and you don't need to go to the supervisor, the quality department or whatever to really stop the process and block everything. That's okay. And then you have, for if you go over even that level, the dark red, you need help for it. Just block the batch until some other expert has done some tests and decided, and somebody else makes a decision. I can understand that difference, and in many organizations that would indeed also become a good way of working. If you're starting out with this, I would advise you to just consider everything dark red, and as soon as you see an obvious trend where your quality engineer or your product technologist always clears your product in the same way for certain quality parameters, you make that a standard. Now you probably still want to register it because this is a problem in your process that at some point you're going to want to fix. So collect your data, but then the instruction becomes different, and the instruction becomes, okay, in these cases, this is the response. You can grow into that. So don't worry too much about it at the beginning. And if you now have a system where there are pretty tight specification limits, then, and basically every time when you go over the specification limit, the answer from the engineers is, yeah, okay, well, the product is good, but this was because we are approaching a limit that would influence the product, or because it is costing us money. That's also one of those things, right? We add too much moisture, so in the next step we'll have to evaporate more moisture, and that costs us a lot. The product will be fine, it just costs us. These type of things, they are not real quality specifications, they are process specifications. So also here, again, if you are starting it up, just put the red limit pretty tight, check what you are doing, which decisions you are making, and loosen those limits based on the decisions you took every time. Document that pretty well, but you will make them into process parameters. Now, on how do you check if the process is good or not? This is where you can use this old experience and data and the things that you've learned about your process. So when the moisture level goes up to a certain amount, it's not bad for the product yet, but we know that it'll cost the company. Perfect limit. The other way is, of course, to use really organized process control, like statistical process control, SPC. And typically when you use control charts with control limits, then if you trigger one of the control limits, that is a process control trigger. Now, if you followed a bit of SPC and specifications, then you know that the two, they don't have a lot to do with each other. Now, there is some link in how you set it up, but there are no product specifications in process control. There is what do you expect the process to do? How can you check if the process is still behaving in the same consistent way? And those make process control limits. And that is what you want your organization to go towards, to make this change in what you tell your operators. So green, because also the process is good, means that everything is good, you do not touch the settings. Orange means that the product can go on, we don't need to block anything, but you do need to check the process. You need to see if things have changed. You need to restore basic conditions. And then red, you first handle the product, and then afterwards also the process. And this way gives so much more clarity than putting product only specifications there that for some reason have this orangey zone in the middle. I never know what to do with an orange product zone. Is the product good or bad? Do we need to correct it or not? Red and deep red, yes, we know how to correct it. Or we'll have to see, but they are both corrections. And the orange level should be reserved for process corrections where the product is still good. Now, if you want to know more about how to use this, just ask ahead in the comments, or you can even set up a call or something like that. But I hope that this makes sense to you. If it did, let me know in the comments. Hit that like button, But really, this simple trick, it has helped so many factories and quality departments already. Make it clear what is expected from an operator on a process. And that is the first step in taking the right decisions on process and product. So I hope that you liked that video. Drop me a comment on anything, but especially if you have some more remarks or questions on this, and I will catch you in the next video. For now, I wish you the best of luck in your performance and product control. And as always, don't forget to enjoy the continuous improvement journey.